When I was in labor with Judah, his labor was very, very intense and incredibly painful, way more painful than Abigail's labor. Abigail's labor was very long, but Judah's was very intense, and the contractions were 10 times more painful. Obviously, I did it without pain medicine, and it lasted, my whole labor from beginning to end was 12 hours, but it was about 6 hours of, that really intense labor where, I couldn't talk through contractions or anything. When you're in the middle of that, it's hard to describe unless you've gone through it, the amount of pain that a person's body can handle. And when you're going through that, you kind of almost feel like, how is my body able to handle this amount of pain, and how much longer can I endure it? And so there's often times throughout the labor where I questioned, can I really do this? This is really bad. And I remember there was a very specific point in my labor with Judah. And this is one of the things that I remember so very specifically. And I was in the birthing tub probably a good several hours for sure before I had him, so I still had a ways to go. By that point, I didn't know how long it would be. So I'm in the birth tub just thinking, oh my gosh, how am I gonna do this? And I remember hearing the song that came on, and it was a Christian song, and the line that I heard was, when you walk into the room, everything changes. And it's talking about Jesus, obviously. And I remember hearing that song, and in my head, I physically pictured Jesus walking into the room, and that brought me a lot of comfort. And in that moment, I remember thinking, wow, Jesus is here. I'm allowing Jesus to come into the room, and he's gonna just help everything. He's gonna help this to just be over, and he's gonna help me get through this, and it's gonna end. I remember thinking Jesus is gonna help this to end now, because I can't do this anymore. After that, I didn't really think about it anymore. I just continued to labor. So we're a year and a half out, and I kind of have this revelation about that moment. I hadn't thought about it in a really long time, and then I kind of remembered that moment. I thought, Jesus is gonna end this pain. That's what I truly expected him to do for me, because he walked in the room and everything was supposed to change. But that's not what happened. I still had many more hours of labor to go through after that point, and to be honest, it got way worse. The contractions got more painful, more intense. Things started to hurt, and I had to push a baby out, obviously. And I kind of realized that we expect God to work in very specific ways, and just like in that moment, I expected God to end my pain right then and there and just make the baby come out, and that's what I wanted of him. He didn't do that. But that does not mean that Jesus didn't walk into the room and that he wasn't there. My prayer might have been, end this pain now, but Jesus walked into the room and he was there with me that whole time. I still had to go through pain. And in life, when Jesus walks into the room, when we accept him into our life and he is there with us as we're having a relationship with him, he doesn't always just take the pain away, and oftentimes we pray for that, just make this all go away. But that's not usually how he works. It's almost like we're still going through that pain. We still have to suffer like that. And sometimes it's intense and it's hard, and it's maybe the hardest thing you've ever gone through. But he's there with us. And looking back at the labor, things like the fact that Judah's cord was wrapped around his neck and his shoulder, I think twice. And so, he easily could have been injured or died from that. And so I look back and I go, Jesus was there. He protected Judah. And in my recovery, I recovered fine. I didn't have a hemorrhage. I didn't have any major complications. Everything went so smooth. And although I still had to go through that pain of the labor, Jesus was there and he helped me through it, and I got through it. truly my prayer ultimately was to have a healthy baby and have me be healthy. And that's what I got. And so honestly, Jesus did answer my prayers. But in that moment, it wasn't what I expected. I wanted that immediate relief, but I still had to go through the pain of labor and the pain of, getting that baby out. But I ended up with exactly what I wanted, this healthy, beautiful baby boy. And it's just so funny to me that it took me 1.5 years to kind of have this revelation and to remember that moment. And it really does remind me that, like, if we're suffering, if we're going through the most unimaginable pain in our life, Jesus is there, and don't ever doubt that. Just because he's not taking away the pain immediately, or he's not working in exactly the way that you're asking him to, that doesn't mean he's not there and that he's not working in your life and helping you through these intense moments of your life. Just like he helped me in the most pain I've ever been in my whole life. And so I hope that encourages you and helps you realize that Jesus is really there with you right now through your suffering.